Hi, and welcome to my mastery product for Chapter 13, Sections 5 and 6 for AP Government and Politics. Today we'll be talking about voter turnout, the 6 factors that affect voter turnout, why voter turnout is so low, and what we can do to increase it. First things first, what is voter turnout? Voter turnout is the percentage of eligible voters who actually show up on election day to cast their vote. Voter turnout is actually surprisingly low in our country, at about 42% in the 2010 election. In our country, pretty much anyone over the age of 18 is allowed to vote, and that right can't be abridged due to race or gender or economic standing. But there are some state laws restricting certain people from voting, like convicted felons or those who don't have proper voter ID. But that isn't because of a federal law, that's under state jurisdiction. Generally speaking, individuals and households with a higher income tend to vote more because they feel that the system is working more in their favor and they feel that their vote counts for something. Whereas people with a lower income sometimes feel more politically alienated and like the system isn't quite working in their favor, for obvious reasons. But this actually goes hand in hand with education, um, because folks who have attained a higher degree or have reached a higher level of education usually have been able to do so because they had better economic resources. And usually because they have a higher degree, they have been able to get the job that requires that, which pays higher. And if they have a higher level of education, they know more about the system, generally speaking. And so they may be more politically involved and little things may get in their way less, like voter registration. Race and ethnicity are also a factor in voter turnout. In fact, more than 3/4 of the voters in the 2010 presidential election were white. Of course, we've seen an increase in the percentage of the voters who are from minority groups in the past years, but there still is a large disparity between the minority groups and the amount of people who are white who are voting. Um, some reasons for this may be that many of the people in the minority groups happen to be of lower uh, of families with lower income, which relates back to income and education being different factors in voter turnout. Another reason some people think is that there used to be laws in place that kept these people in these minority groups from voting, and that there are still some after effects of these laws keeping minority groups from voting. Ever since the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, the right to vote has not belonged exclusively to men, meaning gender also has a relatively large role in voter turnout. After the 19th Amendment was first ratified, the majority of voters were still male. But today, in almost every election, women outvote men. What is probably one of the biggest factors in voter turnout is age. The least likely group to vote is the age group between 18 years old and 29 years old. In fact, only 70% of this group are even registered to vote. The legal age for voting was changed with the 26th Amendment in 1971 to 18 years old, but this age group still doesn't show up to the polls nearly as much as the age group over 30 until the age of 70, when there starts to be a decline due to lack of independence or mobility or means to get to the area where they are scheduled to vote. People who belong to civic organizations, trade and professional organizations, or labor unions are much more likely to vote, along with anyone who belongs to a church or any other sort of religious institution. And this may be because these people are involved in something which encourages a strong sense of community and promotes and gives them a chance to exercise skills in areas like organization and communication, which are very relevant to political involvement. What is probably the main factor in voter turnout is interest in politics. And really, all of the other factors are just components of this because they all control a person's level of interest in politics or in any particular candidate for office. The very, very politically active portion of our population only makes up about 5 to 10% of our population. So it's not just those extremely politically active members who are out there voting a lot. It's mostly the people who see that their vote is really their voice and how they're going to get someone that's going to affect a change for their particular group. So here's the thing. As citizens of a democracy, we have the power to elect officials into office, meaning we have, to some extent, control over the way our government is run. However, not a large amount of our population decides to take advantage of this right. In fact, only 50 to 60% of our entire voting population votes in each presidential election. So we wonder, why is this percentage so low? One big reason for this is other commitments. Possible excuses may include, but are not limited to: too busy, illness or emergency, not interested, don't like the candidates, out of town, don't know, registration problems, inconvenient polling place, forgot, transportation problem, bad weather. If you or someone you know is experiencing one or more of these excuses, you need to remember that we exist in a democracy. We live in a nation where we have the right to vote for a candidate we would like and to have some say in how our country is run and how we are governed. And by not voting, you're throwing away that right. A few other reasons we're starting to see lower and lower voter turnout are difficulty with voter registration, difficulty with absentee ballots, but mostly just the overall attitude of the voters. Whether it's that there weren't any like super pressing issues that year, and so some voters are just apathetic, or some voters may be fed up with just all the arguing and bickering between the two main political parties. Um, and political parties don't have as much influence uh, as far as getting people registered to vote and making sure people get to the polls and everything. Um, and overall, all these little things are just adding up and creating quite a big effect. Really, what this all leads back to is the fact that more people need to be voting. Compared to other democracies around the world, our voter turnout is pitiful, and something needs to be done about this. Suggestions have been made to make the ballots more modernized, to make a national election day, but really what everything comes back to is people just need to be better educated on the issues and realize what their voice and their vote means in every election. And they need to just be more politically interested, which isn't just going to happen on its own. Somehow, we need to educate the American people as to what their voice really means in each election, because some elections can come down to just a couple hundred votes, and that person's vote does make a difference. All right, well, I hope this helps you learn a little bit about voter turnout, or maybe even helped you study for your AP GoPo test. Either way, there's some additional information down in the information section down there, maybe. I don't know. Either way, it's posted somewhere on this page, so you can check that out if you want to learn some more. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks. Um, so, all right, well, I hope